Welcome to another episode of the Bookly podcast, remote from Utah.
That's right.
Excited to do this. I've been wanting to have you on as a guest since like the very beginning. I've been so excited. Oh man, I feel like my mic is just screaming in here. Just move it away a little bit, I guess. But I hate this question for all podcasts, but go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are. Go for it.
Sure. Sorry. Sorry.
You're good.
First time doing this, man. My name is Rob Vomocil. Your brother-in-law, married to your sis.
Yep.
Yeah.
You've been in the family now for, how long have you and Leanne been married?
10 and a half years.
10 and a half years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's a long time.
Wait, is that right?
It has to be longer than that though, right?
No.
No? Shorter?
10 and a half years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
10 and a half years. I had to do the quick math.
I was gonna say, yeah,
2013,
that's probably
10
one
and a
that
half
you
years.
should know.
Yeah. Yeah. Leanne reminds me all the time that we're due on our 10-year anniversary trip, which probably won't happen because of Lucy now, but
Yeah.
we're
that's
planning
gonna, that's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
But you guys got to come to Utah and
Yeah.
hang out, go to Arizona,
Yeah.
get a little bit of warmer weather before you get more colder weather here in Utah.
Yeah.
So that's not too bad.
It was nice. Kids played in the pool. It was like 100 degrees.
Was it really still 100 degrees?
No, it was like 90.
Oh,
But it felt like
that
150
sounds
degrees.
So nice.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, it's been like way cold here and even colder in Idaho. So it's
Yeah.
been the worst.
That's what I was saying. Colder here than in Alaska today, which is crazy. But
Yeah, seriously. So first off, I wanted to get to know your kind of reading preferences first, because this always interests me with new guests is kind of what they like to read, why they like to read, and just kind of how they consume entertainment in general. So would you classify yourself as like a big reader, medium reader, little reader?
I'm a big little reader. No, I used to read a lot more than I do now.
Okay.
Honestly, I just don't have the time to read.
Yeah.
And audiobooks aren't a thing that I've really gotten into too much. Although I used the audiobook this time, and I think that's a medium I'll use.
But wait, you listen to podcasts though, right?
Yeah.
How many podcasts would you say you listen to?
Dude, don't tell my boss this. It's on like almost all the time in the background at work. Like if I'm not on work calls, if I'm doing what I call church work or just like, like busy work or whatever at work, I usually have a podcast going on in the background.
Yeah. See, for me, I felt like the transition from podcast to book was so easy. Like that's how I am able to read books at all.
Yeah.
Is because, I was the same way. Basically, anytime I wasn't on a Zoom call or on a meeting, I'd just flip it right back on.
Yeah.
It'd be like, it'd just be on constantly. And so I felt like that it's a little bit harder with books because I feel like you have to pay a little bit more attention.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just a hair harder.
Yeah.
But not much. I feel like you can consume books pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. The trick of like changing the speed changed everything for me. Cause I felt like when I was first reading, especially this book, I just felt like he was reading really slow. And so I was like,
They read so slow.
yeah. And so I was like, okay, get on with it. But cranked it up to 1.5 speed and I got used to that. And then like by the end, I was like 2.5 speed, just trying to consume. But like when you read, I'm actually reading like that fast normally. So it wasn't that weird.
Yeah, I feel like 1.5 is like perfect for me. That's where I kind of keep it because otherwise I'm like, dude, you are just talk normal, like talk at a normal rate. It's bad.
Yeah.
So what kind of books did you read when you used to read?
So I used to read a lot of like fantasy novels. There was a time in my life, I never really read growing up at all. And I've heard you talk about this, like you never read in high school. I was the same way. I was always in like advanced reading classes and stuff, but never
actually read the book.
Yeah.
Which it's so dumb. 'Cause school is such a joke. It's like, it's a game. It's like, can you write the words that the professor or the teacher wants to hear?
Yeah.
And make the points that they want to hear without ever having to actually learn anything.
Yeah.
Like it's so dumb.
Yeah. If you're smart enough to cheat through high school, you're probably smart enough to graduate anyway. So it's okay. Like I'm all right with that. But so, yeah, so I would read the first book that I remember like really like loving. Lord of the Rings The Hobbit was the first book we read together as a family. And then Lord of the Rings is the first book I read by myself, which I loved. And then like Ender's Game opened up like a whole world of like, fantasy and stuff. And then, yeah.
Have you read any Andy Weir?
The name is familiar. The Martian?
Yep, The Martian,
Yeah.
Project Hail Mary. He's got another one. I want to say Artemis, but I know it's not Artemis. But something like that.
Yeah.
It's like a one word, kind of like spacey sounding word.
Yeah. Interstellar. No.
Yeah, no, for real. It's like something like that.
Yeah. No, I haven't.
Okay.
But really just because like I wish I had more time for like stuff that I want to do now. But you know, 5 kids and you kind of
5 kids, a job,
Yeah. Yeah. Time is
a
one of those
house
things
that
that
has to be
don't go away.
rebuilt.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, for real. Yeah. Thanks for that, by the way. Brandon rebuilt my house.
No,
Shout out to Adam too.
yeah, we did very minimal, but it was fun. I love that kind of stuff. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
So fantasy is what you like.
Yeah, it's well, that's what I used to like. But yeah, so I went on the mission, right? And then a whole lot of like gospel books became kind of my thing. And then yeah, basically the only thing I read now, you know, I was thinking through because I knew you were gonna ask this question. So I was thinking through like what do I read? And I was like looking at my stuff and I buy a lot of books because I want to read them and I don't always read them. But yeah, it's like conspiracy books and then mushroom books. I have like a lot of mushroom books. It's kind of ridiculous. And then, yeah, like I like nonfiction too. Like this book was good for me, but yeah, if I were to just sit down and read, like just for enjoyment, it's probably like fantasy or sci-fi, though I don't know what I would read today. And honestly, if people tell me plots, I'm like, yeah, that sounds stupid. Like I'm not gonna read it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's so hard. I've tried to make it like a goal. Well, and not just a goal. It's like a rule. I don't read after 5 unless Olivia's already asleep. So like she falls asleep, I don't know, like at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. She's a lightweight. But yeah, she falls asleep pretty early. Once we get the kids down, she's out pretty early. So I usually listen to a book for about another hour after that. But other than that, like when it's family time, like I hate doing something while I'm doing something, you know what I mean? So it is hard. You really do have to find time, I feel like, during, this is going to sound bad. I hope no one's listening, which I know no one's listening, so it's fine. You have to find time during work to get it all done. Yeah. So that's why I like audiobooks.
Yeah. No, I'm probably a lot like Olivia. I'm not a night person. You Blackleys are like super night people, and like 10. Honestly, by like 7:30, 8 o'clock, my mind is kind of fried from the day usually.
No, the only 2 night people are Leanne and Dad.
Yeah, super night people.
Yeah, and maybe Reagan. I don't know.
Yeah, I think she is. Yeah,
I just know she's not a morning person, so I hope she's a night person.
Probably right.
Yeah. Awesome. So you said you like conspiracy books. This week's book is Chaos, and the full name is like Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and something or other. It's got a really long name, but it's a conspiracy book, which is why I chose it, because I've been wanting to read it for a long time, and I love conspiracy theories, and I figured who better to talk to than Rob about conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
So
tinfoil hat on. Like,
I know. I almost, and if we weren't recording this in the morning, I was gonna take tinfoil and like put it all over my like normal hat.
Nice.
Because I've worn a hat in every episode. And so I was like, well, I should just have a tinfoil hat in every episode.
Yeah.
Or in this episode. But what did you think of the book?
Dude, so the first, like, honestly, I struggled with the first like 3 chapters. I like really struggled. It's so dark, you know, the subject matter itself, like the Manson murders is so dark that like it was like hurting to read, you know, to like get into the mind of like what happened and then go through the murders and stuff. And it was very intense. So that took me probably honestly a couple of weeks to even just get through the first 3 chapters. But after that, when he kind of, you know, when he lays out the murders and everything, then he goes into like the rest of what he gets into. That's when like it became really gripping. And maybe, you know, I never really like looked into the Manson murders at all. I never really like, I just knew it was a thing. Certainly didn't know like how tied into Hollywood it was. I didn't understand like, you know, who these people were that he was interacting with. And so that was, you know, when the writer begins unraveling all that just became really, really cool to me. But
yeah, I'm an idiot. I'll say this right off the bat. I literally went into this book like through the first couple chapters and I was like, when does he get the nickname the Unabomber? I thought that they were the same person for the longest time. And then it was really like a couple chapters in and I was like, he's a different person, I think. And then I Googled it and I was like, oh yeah, this is a different messed up person. So we're just going to go in a whole new story. So I had no idea who Charles Manson was going into this. I didn't even know like where, like what time he lived in history or like
Title of
who
the
he
book said
killed.
60s, so I got that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's the part I forgot about, the title. So you can again tell how much I knew about this. I thought the first 3 chapters were actually really interesting. I really liked kind of how he unfolded everything. What I will say is I think the author is a little bit, I don't know, like I felt like he was a little scatterbrained, and it came across in his book. Like I think this was the first time in his life he put a tinfoil hat on. Yeah. And then it just took over. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a healthy skepticism and a healthy feel of conspiracy theories is good. Yeah. But you shouldn't go too far down one and then you just turn into a crazy person. You should have you should have your toes in all of them, just a bit. Yeah.
What's crazy? Yeah, dude, I felt the same thing about. He even like I feel like mentions that, and even at the end, he was like, you know, I gave the manuscript to my writer, and they were like, okay, you need a shadow writer. Like we need somebody who's done this before to like help you. But yeah, like one of the things that became clear, and is kind of the thing with conspiracy theories, right? Is like you pull on one thread, and then all these other things like begin to pull out too, and that definitely happened in this book where he like is going in all these different directions, but it's because they're pretty intricately woven, it feels like. So yeah, I definitely felt that, but honestly, that made it harder to track, but it was also kind of cool. And many times throughout, I had to kind of stop and I was like, okay, what are we talking about here? Like how does this relate? And who's this person? So yeah.
So I think throughout the book, he has kind of, I would say it like the main antagonist is that Bugliotti. Yeah. The guy who wrote Helter Skelter. Yeah. And the guy who was the prosecutor. Yeah. Against Charles Manson. Yeah. Did you feel like he was as bad as he was portrayed in the book? Because I feel like, I mean, he really like ripped into Bugliotti in this book. And you could tell like he had a bad experience in trying to gather data like with him. But I don't know. I don't think that this conspiracy theory is as like groundbreaking as a lot of the other ones that I actually believe in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I don't know why this one was so like antagonistic. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, I felt like there was a lot of heat for it. And I was like, yeah, like the CIA is shady. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, why are you trying to cover this up? Like, this is not new information.
Yeah. I agree with you. The first chapter, he like roasts Bugliotti, like when he talks about that first interview and having his in his like house where his wife, and he like describes all of it. No, man, I felt like Bugliotti was just like an opportunistic DA, you know, like he was just trying to make a name for himself. It wasn't until the very end of the book when he's talking about like after that initial interview, I think he like goes through what Bugliotti did after.
Oh, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Harassing the milkman was hilarious.
So funny. So funny. Yeah. And like his wife, the caricature of his wife where he like calls him back later and he's like, okay, we're going to redo the same conversation, but this time my wife is here. Like, oh she's like, and she's like, are you still here? She's like, yes, honey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Like,
my husband's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, honestly, I didn't even think like any of that was necessarily even that crazy, because like, you know, when I was trying to put myself in Bugliotti, she's like, he's a DA, so his whole job is just to get the convictions. And it just seems like so I'm a salesperson, right? So a lot of what a salesperson does, like I can't make people buy things, but all you do is kind of arrange the pieces so that people can make a decision that's favorable for everybody, right? Like that's kind of what you do. And I felt like Bugliotti that's what he did really well. He was like pulling on, you know, the different lawyers they pulled in or whatever. And yeah, so I didn't feel like he was necessarily that evil until, again, like later on, you go through his character. He had the milkman, and then like, yeah, just all the stuff when he caught him on his lies. You're just like, okay, dude, like he's a pretty bad dude.
Yeah. Like I didn't get what Tom O'Neill's point was with trying to prove that Bugliotti like didn't present all of the evidence, or like didn't present the case in like the most exonerating way for the person he's trying to prosecute. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, you realize his job is to lock him behind bars.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to bring forward anything that he thinks could possibly get in the way of, doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
like, and then he's like, I just can't believe he would have, withheld that or not mentioned that or, not revisited this one thing or pulled harder. And I was like, I mean, you're asking him to lose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like that was kind of like a weird take on the whole thing. Had you read Helter Skelter?
No, but I definitely heard about it. I mean, obviously it's kind of a, it set the narrative. It was like the official narrative for the Manson murders. And so I kind of knew a little bit about it, but didn't really know Manson's story too well. Just knew that like Helter Skelter was a thing. So yeah.
It's the most famous true crime book of all time.
Really?
Yeah. I did
Really?
not know that. It sold more copies than any other true crime book ever.
Wow.
And I had never heard about it until I read
It's
this book.
all a lie.
Yeah,
That's what I
seriously.
learned.
Yeah, none of it's true. Yeah. So I want to like kind of recap the Manson murders just so that, somebody who doesn't have any sort of background can kind of follow along. But at the same time, I don't want to be too graphic because I know that a lot of people can't handle.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Very, like I said, very difficult for me to read.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, Charles Manson was like a hippie, right? I mean, he grew, actually, diving into his childhood was actually really interesting.
Yeah.
So he spent, up until the time he was 32, he spent more time in federal prison and federal, like, what would you call that? Like, it's not kid prison, but like.
Yeah, like a juvenile.
Juvenile.
Juvenile detention center or something like that.
Yeah,
But
like-
federal custody
Yeah,
for sure.
federal custody by the time he was 32. He spent more time in federal custody than outside of federal custody. He like bounced in and out of, all sorts of things for just being a kind of a riffraff kid. And then, so I guess diving into that, I did want to know, what's your take on letting people like that out? Because this is where I was kind of the entire time like, really?
Yeah.
Like, really? We're going to just be like, we're going to be shocked that this guy did something crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think he was 25 when he went in, or no, I guess he was 18 or something when he went in for this first 7 years. And so they let him out. I'm all about second chances. Like, I'm a guy that's gotten way too many second chances in my life. So I almost don't blame Manson just because there were so many, like, I mean, they go through, like, he was arrested, 8 times, 9 times, where, like, his parole officer wasn't notified. Like, he wasn't sent back to jail. And so, I mean, that's kind of, if they had followed protocol, like, it wouldn't have ever been an issue anyways. And so he would have gone right back into the system. And so, I mean, again, like, for people that get out, like, I'm all about second chances. I've had my fair share with run-ins with the law in my life. And, honestly, like, those were like game changers for me and changed perspective and things like that. So yeah, I'm all about that. But this is like egregious, it was.
Yeah. I mean, his crimes were like, I mean, they weren't, I mean, again, I have a hard time with that. Like, I agree that you should have second chances. If you do your time, you should be given that chance to kind of turn your life around. But like, they like glance over the fact that he was like, I mean, sexually assaulting kids in prison and like all sorts of things. Like, he wasn't like the model prisoner who was like, all right, I'm just going to get out now and I'm going to turn my life around. I've been reading books and working out at the yard, getting jacked, and I'm ready to go, take on my new job. He was like not a good dude.
Yeah, not
like
at
even
all.
in prison, and then when he gets out of prison, the first thing he does, like within 24 hours, is violate his parole.
Yeah.
And it's like, you really just were like cool with it? Like, I don't, that's the part that I don't understand. I don't understand like why some people can follow rules and you still get in trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you hear people
Yeah.
like, I know people that are like, I mean, they follow the rules. They've never been to prison. They've never done anything. And then they like get attacked by the IRS for like something stupid. You know what I mean? Like, like, I don't know, like something dumb like that. Or, you get in trouble for writing a ticket or, running a red light or something like that. And then you get people who like blatantly just don't care at all, like about the rules. Society doesn't matter. Like, they don't want to be a part of society and they don't want anything to do with it. And then people are just like chill with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and like, yeah, it's clear with Manson, like he never had any semblance of like what real society is like. So it's so funny though, because like his whole MO was like the destruction of society and like the nuclear family and all of that, like his mindset. But yeah, I got the sense when he first, like he broke parole right away, but he went, you know, up to San Francisco to Haight-Ashbury or whatever. And I feel like he probably would have had he would have been like every other hippie had he not gotten the one parole officer that he did get, who was like,
pushing him to do LSD.
yeah, doing all the experiments and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, a part of it is like he's really I feel like the perfect candidate for these programs that, you know, they were doing. But that certainly, you know, they took a bad egg and then they made it even worse.
Yeah. So kind of moving on along with his life. So yeah, he basically is in and out of juvenile detention centers. He's not a good guy. Steals a lot of cars, apparently. That was pretty close.
That was his thing. Yeah. Turned him into dune buggies. Like, cool, I guess.
So he stole a lot of cars. And then he, like you said, he went up to San Francisco. He wasn't supposed to. They were like, you know what? We'll give you another chance. And then he gets hooked on LSD. He's part of like the whole, you know, Haight-Ashbury hippie, you know, free live commune there. And then he decides that he's going to start his own little hippie commune, and it's called The Family. And it's just a group of basically him and a bunch of women at first who just live free in the desert.
Yeah.
Like, that's as much as I'll say.
Yeah.
And then he ends up convincing them that there's going to be a race war and that he's good friends with the Beatles, and then that they should just go out and murder people because it doesn't matter. And that's about it. And they're all just hooked on drugs, like hard drugs the whole time, and going nuts in the desert.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is that his parole officer, all of the girls are on parole too, basically. And all of them, all their parole officers know that they're doing this, know that they're out just doing drugs and, you know, stealing cars and driving up places, and that they're not supposed to be, like driving up to Seattle, doing things they're not supposed to be, basically just no regards to the rules that they were given. And then eventually they kill people. And then they're like, how did this happen? And that's the part where I'm like, what do you mean, how did this happen? Like, you just let them run wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that like they talked a lot about his character arc. So when he goes to San Francisco, he spends a lot of time up in Ukiah. And so I lived in Ukiah for about a year, and it's funny, man. Like, obviously I lived there in like 2010, 2011, and you could totally see that culture existed, and it just like destroyed that whole community. And like basically the people that are left in Ukiah are like a lot of old people that have lived there forever, and then a whole lot of like burned out hippies who are now homeless and living on the government and stuff. And so, I mean, yeah, you can kind of see the aftermath, obviously, of like 40 or so years of what that turns into. And yeah, it was shocking, obviously, that Manson was like that, but also like culturally, dude, California is kind of a weird place, and that mentality of just like free love still kind of exists despite all the issues. You know, people still stand behind like that lifestyle of like, do whatever you want, you know?
Yeah. And I think that was part of the book. Part of the book they were talking about, like at the very beginning, he was saying that kind of the original rationalization for all of the murders and everything, I think he said, you know, live freaky, die freaky was kind of their motto. Like, if you kind of live that lifestyle, then you run the risk of kind of dying by that lifestyle too, that like weird lifestyle.
Well, it was like a badge of honor for them too. Like they didn't really care, you know? Yeah. I mean, what did they say? Like, love is everything, everything is nothing was kind of their, so like they just didn't, there was no like moral compass. There was no like guiding principles aside from just, do whatever you want and it's okay. And then obviously that turned into like, do whatever you want. And then we need to change society to be like this. And that whole movement, you know, wild when you think about it. But I mean, the free love movement, and, you know, they talked about like birth control and the effect that had, and just, you know, women walking around. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how graphic you want to get, but I mean, like it's crazy, you know, and you can kind of see like, of course this is going to go off the rails, but it's hard to imagine how dark it got, you know, and I'm sure a lot of the people were like, whoa, that's way more than we thought. You know, I think people thought he was just going to be, you know, a free love hippie who had his little movement, you know, like the Hare Krishna people, or you know what I mean? Like I think
Yeah.
that's what they thought it was going to be like. And obviously he took a much darker turn than anybody anticipated.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting how, I mean, obviously that was kind of the darkest turn that was covered in the book, but I felt like they also, I mean, a lot of the people that they interviewed that lived that lifestyle, I mean, were completely burnt out by the time they lived this. Like, it just kind of went to show how, like, living like that doesn't lead to anything long-term, like, productive. Like, anybody that was kind of tangential to these murders who were, you know, partying at the house or, you know, were, you know, really, I mean, partying at the house, that's basically what everybody did every day, they said. And they go back and they talk to him, and it was like, he's, you know, living in a bus, or, you know, he has like his 1-bedroom apartment, and he's like sad that he doesn't live, and that, you know, he drives by the house all the time and looks at it, and it's like, man, I wish I could go back to those times. And it's like, it was just sad, you know, like I just felt like it led to zero fulfillment, and like, just, I don't know, nobody in the book seemed happy to me. Not one person. Like, it was not a happy book. Yeah.
Oh, dude, 100% was not a happy book. I was like shocked by kind of all the stuff about the Beach Boys. So, so Manson was like in and around the Beach Boys and their main producer, and the author had like a run-in with the producer who's living in, you know, some really, you know, bougie house or apartment in Los Angeles. And, you know, they had that interview like right towards the end of his life, and you could just tell this guy was like empty, you know, I mean, he was still just like day drinking 2 bottles of wine, you know, at the pool, and like was talking about the glory days as if there was glory there. And you could just feel like, his life was empty. And then he like died 2 years later of cancer, and you know, just really sad kind of stories. And, you know, you learn throughout, like the Beach Boys were all pretty straight edge to begin with. They had families, they had wives, and then, you know, kind of got involved in that, I guess, the party culture, you know, at the house, and then everything just derailed, you know? So yeah, the fruit of what they were doing was certainly bad, but you know, live freaky, die freaky, right?
I know, literally. I know. I kind of felt like that justification. I was like, I get it. You know, as sad as that is, I'm like, you know, if that's the way you want to go. Yeah. But I think the book really takes so it's got all of those kind of normal things about like the murder, Charles Manson, how crazy he was. I mean, he was a crazy dude. Who tattoos a swastika on their forehead? Like, that's about it. I mean, that's as crazy as you get, right? Yeah. I mean, he's nuts. And all of his followers were nuts. They were all like cutting themselves on their trial, like on their face. They all had scars cut into their foreheads for swastikas. And they were a crazy group of people. But outside of that, I think once it gets through the trial and everything in the book, it starts to take the turn down, basically like, well, whose fault is it? Yeah. And that's really kind of the crux of the book, is like, Charles Manson may have, and the family definitely committed the murders, but like, why'd they commit the murders? Yeah. You know, like, who really drove them to do that? And then that's where it starts to get, you know, that, I guess his point of the story is like wild. Like, it wasn't as cut and dry as just, you know, a hippie commune committing murders. It was like the government. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, like, how involved do you think the government is in the Charles Manson murders? And then we're going to go into some other ones, because I have a list here.
Dude, all right. So yeah, I can't remember the one character's name, but he was the guy that like had like, and maybe you'll remember his name, the guy where they were like, nobody knew anything about him except for what he told them, and he would always show up and know all the power players and like always be in the room but never be doing anything. And he was the one that was like feeding Bugliotti, like, and he was like bringing up new witnesses to Bugliotti, and his name was off of everything. Yeah, I mean, clearly, like, you know, so everybody, including this guy's wife, like testified that he was a CIA agent. And that was, while it's like really, it's like unfathomable, you also kind of see it from this guy's perspective. If like he's got a mission, and his mission was something, you know, kind of crazy, obviously, but clearly he was just doing his job, you know, and like treated it like that and was like a consummate professional at his job. And so he found himself at all these parties, and, you know, he had like infiltrated all these groups. Like, that's a pretty specific time and a pretty specific place where you can point to it. but to answer your question, like I have no doubt that same stuff happens. It's going to happen very differently today. I've thought a lot about like what that would look like today. But yeah, I actually think that, that type of influence, it was really pointed because, technology didn't exist. There wasn't the internet. They didn't have the reach. And so they had to kind of go in and be embedded with these people, and the culture and things like that to try to influence it. So I think that the government's pretty involved in a lot of things that we would be like, nah, they're not. And I'm like pretty convinced that, yeah, dude, totally. Like they're trying to move things around and shape things. I mean, cause that's what came out is that was like became their objective is to try to shape the culture and, it's kind of blew up in their face. But also it accomplished the means or the ends justified the means. In this case, it accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. So
what did they want to accomplish? Because that's what I didn't understand. Like, I didn't understand, like, the part that, like, I 100% think the government was involved. I mean, MK Ultra is crazy.
Yeah.
And that was definitely proven. I mean, that's true, So for anybody who doesn't know what MK Ultra is, the government basically took people and just did experiments on them to try to figure out if they could breed superheroes with LSD, basically.
Yeah.
Like
Manchurian candidates. Yeah.
Yeah. Could they take these people and fry their brains with LSD and try to, help them read people's minds and like have superpowers? And it was just like regular people. So that one's crazy because that was not just prison. I mean, prisoners is awful, but I was looking through like the amount of operations that have been done on prisoners, and it's a lot. Like non-consent experiments done on prisoners, the government does it all the time, which is crazy on all sorts of things. But then this one was also done on like college kids, like random people, policemen. Like they were they were experimenting on anybody without consent, without any prior knowledge, to try to test a new like truth serum drug. Like they were trying all sorts of different things with it. So, and that was going on in San Francisco during this exact period of time. So
Operation Bluebird, right, where they had that, they described that house that they set up with like the two-way mirrors where they would basically just bring in Johns, and they would film them and they would, dose them and then see what happened. And yeah, it was wild. It was wild. Unwitting people who are getting experimented on, that's, but I mean,
but so like I get the ends to that one. Like they're trying to create superhumans.
Yeah.
As dumb as that sounds, that literally is what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't get like what the end goal for Charles Manson was. Outside of, I know that they were trying to like discredit the Black Panthers. Like that was their, like the government at the time was super worried about the Black Panthers movement. And
the Berkeley riots as well. So like hippies who were anti-war hippies, right?
Okay, so that's what it was, as they were trying to create basically a monster for the hippies so that the entire nation could hate the hippies as much as the government does.
Yeah. Yeah. So
like essentially, am I
hitting it on the head? That's kind of what I got. This idea of like Johnson identified, like Lyndon B. Johnson identified, I think in those like sealed documents that he ended up finding, that he, identified the hippie movement and the Berkeley riots, the Berkeley college students, as like the number one threat to like a stable civil society. And so it started there, and, under this guise of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so it was like, well, they knew Manson was a racist, and they knew that, he was a liberal hippie. And so if they could get him to go against the Black Panthers, then that would create enough chaos within, the leftist movement that they could then discredit it all.
And this has all been proven, by the way. This is all unsealed CIA documents.
Yeah, the Warren Commission and all that came out.
Yeah, and this is Operation Chaos. That's what the book is called, this Operation Chaos. It is the operation that Lyndon B. Johnson specifically identifies these groups.
Yeah.
And says we need to basically try to discredit these groups internally within the United States.
Yeah. Well, and went further even, like Reagan, I don't know if it was when he was governor, but like Reagan picked up on it and like clearly perpetuated this program because they felt like, they were finding new enemies or new things that they wanted to do. And so they just kept the program going, which, by the way, like I'm going to throw out there, like I think like, I think that was a seed that was planted. Obviously like, if I'm putting myself in intelligence, so like you learned a lot. They learned a lot at that, like with what happened there, and it kind of blew up in their face. But also there was a lot of like effectiveness because, they said after the Manson murders, like people didn't trust hippies, and then, all the Black Panther shootings and stuff. And they got that to kind of coalesce and kind of blow up. So again, like they got the objective that they wanted to. So in my mind, like if I'm looking at a mission, they were like, well, the mission was accomplished. And so why wouldn't they continue to just keep trying to social engineer people? And I think, that I feel like is certainly 100% happening. And, we can get in.
I mean, they definitely did. So I went and looked up like, okay, were there any more like known instances of this? Because like you said, this was kind of, I don't know if this was the start, but I feel like this was definitely one of the bigger portions of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, or like, I guess, biggest examples of it in modern history. Like maybe there's something at the very beginning, but
like the Unabomber too, he was one, right? MK Ultra subject.
Yeah.
When he was at Harvard, I think Harvard. Yeah.
But I don't know that he was necessarily like meant to. Like,
no,
I think that was just they fried his brain.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I think that was a mistake. Like if they were again pulling up their mission,
we got that wood rock.
If they were pulling up their mission documents at that one, I think that one was like a oopsie daisy.
Whoops.
Yeah, somebody got fired over that one. This one, I agree with you. I don't know that they would have really called this one a mistake. Like, unfortunately, a couple people in Hollywood died.
Yeah.
But other than that, like you said, the public definitely turned on hippies. The public definitely turned on the Black Panthers, and that was the ultimate goal, right? That was the goal from the whole thing. So then I was looking just after that, there was an Operation Northwoods.
Yep.
That was proposed, and it was a proposed false flag operation originated by the U.S. Department of Defense in 1962. So like literally right after.
That was before.
Oh, no, right before.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was before.
That was the guy who, like, he was like the agent that they drugged, right? And then didn't he committed suicide, and that's how that one came out. I can have that wrong, but
no, this one was one that never actually happened.
So
okay. This is one that John F. Kennedy rejected because it got to his desk. But the goal was the CIA asked for U.S. citizens to commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets to blame the Cuban government.
That's right.
So that they could justify a war in Cuba.
That's right.
Like, how nuts is that? They're like, we need Americans to kill Americans so that we can fight Cuba.
That's right. Northwoods was the one. That's right. That was the one where they were going to blow up the plane.
Yes.
They were going to blow up the plane.
They were going to blow up.
They
were going to paint a plane.
Yeah.
That literally was what they said. They were like, we're going to paint this plane so that it looks super American. And then we're going to have an American shoot it down. And then we're going to blame Cuba so that we can bomb Cuba.
Yeah.
It's like, that's nuts.
Yeah. Well, dude, and they mentioned like at the beginning of this program, like the whole reason was because, again, Johnson was convinced that the hippie movement was actually like, because hippies were communists, right? They believed in kind of that free love, and, he believed that the Russians were actually funding and like and producing the drugs. Lo and behold, it was the CIA. Spoiler alert. They were giving out LSD.
Yeah. Which is nuts. So then this is where I'm like, I don't know where I've heard the quote, but it's like, I don't think it's a quote. Somebody said this once, but it's like, if you believe in all conspiracy theories, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And if you believe in none, you're also an idiot.
Yeah, totally.
Like
100%.
There's no way the CIA did this and then was like, you know what? We're going to go clean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're going to go ship shape, and we're never going to do something like this again. So this is where like modern parallels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily think that it's been proven yet, and you can't be like 100%. Like, there were, the CIA is behind it. But when somebody says, there's no way that the CIA or the FBI did anything with January 6th.
Yeah.
For instance, like
straight to January 6th. Huh?
Well, because that's one that like is almost proven, like they don't know how involved they were, but there were like on payroll FBI officers shouting, "Get into the Capitol."
Yep.
You know what I mean? That are on video and things like that. And then people are like, "No, there's no way." And it's like, you look throughout history. Like there's like, it just happens. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's crazy that people don't think that could happen again now.
Dude, the piece, so it's a great thought and question. I think the piece that I think is most illustrative to me is when, so the CIA director who was over this program, he left for some reason. They described like why he was kicked out, and there was a new director that came in, and basically the new director, wasn't even able to be read in to these programs. Like he didn't even know, like he wasn't able to know about these programs. So that you have like the director of the CIA, ostensibly the head of the organization, who doesn't even know. And he's like fewer than a half dozen people at any time knew about, this. Like what that tells me is it's, when they spun off the program, obviously it had its own infrastructure, it had its own reporting system. And then suddenly there's no way that apparatus, like that structure went away, right? Like the people who did that obviously learned how to do that and what they were doing. And then, from there, it's not that hard of a leap to just say, okay, well, like, how are we going to do this better next time? Or what are we going to do next time? And then, yeah, if the director of the CIA doesn't even know, then like, who's to say that they've got all these other programs? I've had a lot of like thoughts about that, like how, and I've got hypotheses around it. I mean,
Go for it. Dive deep. This is what I wanted. This is why I wanted you on the podcast for this episode. Not because of Charles Manson. Charles Manson was a jumping off point, and I thought the book was very interesting. But honestly, it was more of like it opens up the question for like, one, is it, ethical is not the right answer, but is it needed? You know, because I think in some cases, I mean, espionage is needed for every country. Mm-hmm. And then also like, how does that exist and how does that affect us nowadays?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm thinking of, like, they mentioned that one agent. I can't remember his name. It's like Reese. It's not it.
Agent Smith.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll just call him Agent Smith.
Yeah. So he, like, started out as, like, his initial cover was under Project Mockingbird, which is, again, one of these unsealed things under Kennedy, where they would plant, like, the CIA would actually have writers at the major publications who were who would go undercover as like communist sympathizers and then put out like communist propaganda in like major publications. So this one agent, Agent Smith, he worked for the New York Times before he moved out to LA, before he got involved in the Hollywood scene. Like he was at the New York Times pretending to be a communist sympathizer so that he could then be connected to all the other communist sympathizers. And the idea was like, he'll put out, communist literature or whatever, like pro-communist like narratives in the newspaper, and then that would allow him to gain the trust of like actually sleeper cell communists in the United States, and so they could infiltrate from that round. But yeah, I mean, obviously, so they did that program, which like that's also unsealed, like that's known. But then from there, he went to Hollywood of all places, to infiltrate in Hollywood, and so, I mean, yeah. The biggest thing to me is like the biggest question mark, as I thought about this, is like where. So, okay, so let's say the program happens and it gets unsealed and you got the Warren Commission and all things. So the government's now looking at it being like, well, how did you do this? And the Warren Commission was able to basically prove that things happened, but they still weren't able to prove like where all the money came from. I mean, there was some federal funding, but from then all that did was kind of dive these people in deeper. And the biggest question to me is like, how would they fund these kind of operations? Were they using US dollars to do this? And
Drug money.
Yeah, dude, 100%. I mean, like literally that's what they were doing. They had this lab in Texas producing LSD for them, and then they were giving that out. But then
But I mean, they were also at the same time like smuggling marijuana across the board.
Iran-Contra.
Iran-Contra, basically everything in Vietnam. Yep. You know what I mean? Opium. Like, it's known also. I mean, I don't think the opium in Vietnam, I think, is unsealed or anything like that. But it's pretty, like, there's a lot of witnesses that said that they just, stacked crates of that.
Yeah.
And stole it, and, like, everything in Iran. In Afghanistan, like
poppies, still to this day, they proved like, poppies
they basically launder money through drugs to pay for these kind of programs that are a little bit more shady that they don't want any trails to.
Yeah. Well, dude, and like what's also clear is that these people would get out and then they'd go into Get Out, you know, and then they'd go into these like private enterprises where they would, in my mind, it's not far-fetched to think, okay, let's say we take this money and now we're going to fund a project in Hollywood. And like, if we just take that train of thought even a little bit further, like suddenly now you've got this, let's say they produce a movie and that movie is successful. Well, who's getting the proceeds to that movie? Well, it would be these programs or the people who are running these programs. And then what are they going to do with that money? Well, they're going to go fund more. And so, I mean, again, I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go, but when I look at that, it makes sense to me that like, okay, if you're managing a black program or a program that's, you know, the government doesn't even know about, you got to have this funding structure. You've got, you know, couple successful projects, you compromise a couple people, which again, like we're talking about, even in this book, they're talking about the most successful music producers in the 60s. We're like
Doris Day, you know, like was mentioned multiple times and was refused to comment, refused to say anything, and was totally just like, nope, not going anywhere near this case.
The Beach Boys, the Mamas and the Papas, like talked about Elvis Presley was at the house. Like, I mean, like literally, you know, you're going down this list and you're like, dang, dude, these are like A-list celebrities who are partying with these people. And then Agent Smith is like the one who's introducing all of these people to each other and is always there in the room at these parties. And like, so the main guy, I can't remember what the actor's name is, whose wife ended up being murdered. He was out of the country. When he came back, his handler or whatever.
Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of. Yeah. She plays him she plays her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
That's her character is the one that gets murdered in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
Because it's the house that they visit.
Yeah. Dude. So I was like halfway through the book. This is how dumb I am, dude. Halfway through the book, I connected. I was like, wait, this is just like Once Upon a Time. And that's, you realize like it is
literally. I went through the cast list, like Tex Watson and stuff is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, like he has a character.
Yeah, I gotta go back and rewatch that movie now, man.
I know.
Like,
same.
But yeah, I mean, so you've got all this money, you've got all these people. Like, how would that look? How would that evolve today? I mean, dude, it's really not that hard for me to think that like, yeah, I mean, they begin, you know, all you gotta do is open up a production shop, you know, and they talk about in this, you know, particularly like the LSD portion, that they would spin up these like shadow companies that were like Research Institute or like, you know, whatever, like generic names. And that's what they would do all this stuff under. So you got to wonder, like, there's going to be companies that we would look at and say legit, that they're legit, when ultimately like they were just being funded. And then you perpetuate that, like, okay, so let's say you make lots of money in, you know, the 60s or whatever. By the time you get to like the 90s or 2000s, who's to say that there aren't like hedge funds that are, you know, people who have accumulated enough money that are now funding, you know, projects with strings attached just to kind of see. And like, you know, I'm looking at like Palantir Ventures, which we know, like, you know, or I mean, a lot of like the original investors, like in Facebook, like where'd all that money come from? Like, well, dude, that was 100% a project. I mean, Facebook in and of itself, you know, this is a project that like the CIA had like
lots of strings attached to Facebook and the amount of, you know, information that they give back. And there's a reason why they give it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. And like, yeah, I mean, and in this case, you know, you've got like legit Hollywood, like music producers, that are trying, you know, their objective is to like produce music, but obviously if they're captured or if like they've got side deals on the side, then yeah, I could totally see how this stuff would just be put in and, you know, funded and kind of go from there. So.
Yeah. So then, I mean, it obviously, I don't want to say obviously, I guess, I personally think it obviously exists nowadays too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just think it, like, there's no way that this doesn't still go on nowadays.
Yeah.
But do you think, like, what do you think the ends have to be to justify the means? You know what I mean? Because I think that's the whole idea behind it. I mean, is that, you know, we have to do some bad things to prevent some worse things. I mean, I don't think at all they were. I mean, you're not doing good by, you know, raising a hippie commune family in the middle of nowhere, drugging them up and letting them just run wild and break laws left and right. You know, like it's not like do a good thing to do it, you know, to perpetuate more good. It's like do a bad thing to prevent another bad thing. And like, how bad does that bad thing have to be before you feel like the ends justify the means?
Dude, I mean,
do you think it's justified?
No. So me personally, like, no, 100% not, right? Like there's
in any situation.
I think that there's like when you look at espionage, right? Like what are you trying? You're trying to like learn more about your enemies to protect Americans, and I think that would be the mission, right? Like the mission of I would say that the CIA probably is to protect Americans, right? Is to like fight the battles that aren't even to win the battles that we're not even fighting yet before those battles become battles, right? Like before we're going into war, like shape culture of people or influence in other countries' offices so that they're not going to war. And so like from that perspective, you can say, well, yeah, I mean, these murders were brutal, but I mean, at that time it was like the war on drugs and the war on communism, and this certainly had an effect where the average American household was like, wow, these drugs will turn you into killers. And so like in theory that's supposed to protect American families from the perpetuation of drugs. But yeah, I mean, I don't see any world in which that's where the kind of stuff that they were doing is okay and justified. But I don't know, maybe if I was in the CIA and I knew how messed up the world was, I'd be like, yeah, okay, like we don't want that happening. So yeah, maybe a couple American actors die, but whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's where I have a hard time with it, because it's like you said, the goal of the CIA would probably be, you fight your enemies before they're even really enemies.
Yeah.
But it's like, who decides what the enemy is? So like
Yeah.
in this time, the enemy was hippies. It was hippies and Black Panthers, and like, I mean, maybe there were some bad things with hippies for sure, but maybe there was also not some bad things. But then, I mean, who decides who the next bad guys are? I mean, it's one minute it's MAGA Republicans, and
Right.
next it's Bernie Sanders supporters. You know what I mean? Like it's like who decides who that is, and then you're just lumped into this group and then attacked. I mean, and then you essentially have the entire U.S. government trying to attack you.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you look at like COINTELPRO, which they talk about as well. So you have Chaos. Chaos was the CIA's program, and then COINTELPRO was the FBI's program that they ran in tandem. And COINTELPRO was the first time, I think they had he said probably gonna get the number wrong, like 70,000 Americans or 70,000 people that were under surveillance, and like 10,000 of those were Americans. That they're like deep surveillance on these people and operations going on. And so, yeah, the scary thing about that is like the reason why these people were targeted was because Lyndon Johnson thought that they were a threat to his candidacy. And because he's the commander in chief, they just, they got the okay for the program and they went with it. And like the last 5 years has shown how quickly that turns and changes, depending on who's in power. They've got different enemies than other people do. And so it's a really scary weapon to wield. And it, back in the 60s, it makes sense because you got lightning in a bottle, like you've got you've got a program, and like these are isolated incidents, these are isolated people and their justification. But, after this program and after the Warren Commission, like if it goes further underground, then the genie's out of the bottle at that point. And like, literally they can target and pick off whoever they want for whatever means, if the means is some ambiguous goal of like, yeah, we're protecting American families, and that was kind of the thing. Like even in these LSD studies, they were talking about the one guy who's like doing all those LSD studies, even his researchers were like, what's the point of this? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? And there wasn't a really good point other than like, yeah, we're just going to see how far we can take this. Like, we're going to see what we can do with this. So,
yeah. And I think that's where Tom O'Neill, I think that's his name, the author, gets kind of lost in this, is that he's so worried about like he just kind of keeps going down that rabbit hole of like, who's pulling the strings, when it really is pretty obvious. The government's pulling the strings and you'll never figure out why.
Yeah.
And no one else is willing to talk about it because it, like, I don't know, doesn't matter anymore, really. You know what I mean? Like everything was accomplished that they wanted to accomplish. Like,
yeah.
So like, why bring it up anymore? Like, I'm sure if it hadn't accomplished anything, then maybe people would be willing to talk. But
yeah,
like they checked the box,
dude. So I've got a question for you. So like, what do you think that would look like today? Like, let's. So we know the program was never officially shut down, right? Because it never officially, like, they knew that it happened, but they could never identify like who the agents were. And then by the time that this Tom O'Neill uncovered the agents, like he was already in private business, you know, doing all of like contracting and stuff like that. Like, what do you think, you know, assuming that the idea of that program perpetuated, what do you think that would look like today?
I think it goes both ways. I don't think it just goes to trying to depict negative influence to, I think it's much more digital nowadays. You know, it's so much easier to move a nation. I think back then you had to create news.
Yeah.
And so the best way to create news was to, again, have these, you know, false flag sleeper cell agents that would do something horrendous that would create news. Nowadays, it's so easy to create news that I think it's done primarily through news networks and all of these, you know, farms and things like that. But I think what it really looks like today is Ukraine. I think that's a perfect example. Just the instant flip on a dime support for billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to go to Ukraine, and just the constant perpetual just Ukraine flag in bios, Ukraine flag in bios. We're here for Ukraine, constantly going through ads about Ukraine, like just everything, like the YouTube algorithm automatically starting to like suggest videos of Zelensky on SNL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just that constant like feed of information for whatever their goal is, which you obviously the government's goal right now is to send more and more money to Ukraine for whatever purposes they want to. Like, not going to dive into like exactly why they want to do that, but it's pretty obvious that that's what they want. They want to send money to Ukraine, and they don't want the U.S. people to, make that an unfavorable position. And so they're just going to constantly just put more and more information on Ukraine.
Yeah.
And they have, you know, top celebrities, top news anchors, top, you know, companies, every major company, just little Ukraine flag in your bio, Ukraine flag in your bio. And it's just that constant messaging that we support Ukraine, but it's not coming from the government. You know what I mean? Like the government's not over here saying like, I mean, Joe Biden's over here saying we need to send more money, but the rest of the government's not over here like, this is what we're doing in Ukraine. This is what we're doing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's just everywhere else people are saying that.
Yeah.
And that to me is what it is today.
Yeah.
It's that constant messaging that goes out on everything. Like the moment that you can see it flips on a dime and everybody starts doing the same exact thing, that's when I'm like, you know what? I don't think every CEO just all of a sudden was like, you know what? This is what we're going to keep going with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too, because like we've got kind of the flywheel of like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because like social media, if they're trying to get people engaged, well, the most engaging thing is conflict, right? So the algorithm will do all that it can to both validate your position internally, whatever that position is. Like they have, you know, the algorithm will push validating stuff, and then we'll do the opposite. It will also push like the opposite opinion just to create kind of that conflict, because I mean, ad agencies are looking at that being like, well, yeah, dude, I mean, that means they're going to get more clicks, more likes, more views, you know, we're going to get more screen time or whatever. And interestingly, I mean, they even talked about that in this book, that part of the objective of this stuff with Manson was to create that polarization. Lyndon Johnson said so that the left will eat itself at the time. But again, like it was kind of isolated to California, you know, it was kind of isolated because of political stuff. And now you can just see like if that mentality still exists, then like there's definitely, you can feel almost the engineering of like we're being directed to kind of eat ourselves internally, you know, just fight all the time about, you know, anything. And then the other side of it is like there's this moral case to be made, and it's always a moral case, right? So in the hippie movement, it's a moral case for like American families. Like you got to be against the hippies because of this moral case. And so, you know, people feel really justified in their position and then hold it, you know, kind of as a core value. And then, you know, when you get that and you direct that against somebody who's got an opposing view, then suddenly like it just becomes really contentious. And again, one of the most successful companies in the world, dude, they're, you know, Meta, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, just people who can manipulate that algorithm and just cash in, you know?
Yeah. Cause I honestly think at my core, most people would get along one-on-one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that there have been times, and maybe I was just too young, but I felt like the 90s, You know, most people just kind of got along. You know what I mean? I don't think that it was, I mean, there were obviously political differences, and there were some people that were like, you know, there were groups that probably weren't liked as much, but for the most part, growing up, like I just never really saw that, and I never really heard about it. Like even in adults, you know, it just wasn't a huge thing. And so I feel like there has to be some driving force into why that changed. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that that changes naturally. I don't think people move from, you know what, like this is what I want, but you know, I understand that the goal is for, again, to protect Americans, for everybody to be happy. Like we want to help the poor. Like I think on both sides of the spectrum, like everybody wants to help the poor. They want
to be safe.
They want to be safe. They want, you know, America to grow and prosper. They'd like the world to be a happier place and everybody to have food, and, you know, for everybody to have an equal chance to succeed. Like I think everybody, left, right, center, brown, blue, black, green, you know what I mean? Like everybody wants that. And to move from that to where it's like, I don't know, the right feels like the left is trying to, you know, take away their freedoms and everything like that. And the left feels like the right is trying to, you know, shoot their kids in schools. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of the attitude and the opinion that you have of the other people. Like there has to be a driving force behind that. I don't think that just naturally occurs.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, again, one of the things they learned is when you have polarization, you've got this conflict, it's pretty then easy to drive a narrative of success. So like if you're a politician, right, like there's no actual incentive to fix anything, because if you fix all the problems, then there's no reason for anybody to like support your campaign, right? Like the idea would be like, yeah, if you fix the problems, nobody's going to get you back in office. And so I think, you know, you create this conflict, and then whoever the actor is, or, you know, like the state actor is going to raise their hand and be like, oh, I can solve this. I mean, when you look at, like, we'll use Trump and Biden, you know, Trump got more votes than any president ever had previously. And he lost the election because Biden, quote unquote, got more votes than him. Right. Like, and the only reason why is not because Biden's like some grand politician. I don't think anybody in the left now would say like, yeah, I wholeheartedly support Biden. Like, I think we can see it, but there was so much vitriol towards Trump that it was like, well, no, we need to solve this problem because this is a huge problem. When like ultimately the problem is all created in our minds because, you know, Orange Man is bad and scary and racist or whatever the narrative is. And so you've got kind of that conflict. And so, you know, amid that chaos, it's a really great opportunity for somebody who is maybe ambitious to take advantage of that situation. And I mean, that's always been the case, right? Like that's Hitler, like literally, you know, like that's like what I mean, you know way more about that than I do, but like, you know, that was it. Like put out all the media, all the publications, like stir up the public so that he can come out as like this hero leader, and then, you know, foment kind of this rage amongst the people so that they can then funnel that rage into him and into his campaign. And ultimately he's just going to do whatever the heck he wants to do. But people are going to stand behind him because he's going to be, you know, the savior, fix their problems. And like, I mean, dude, that's marketing like 101, right? You create or you help identify a problem, and then you educate people, and then you propose a solution. I mean, that's sales, right?
Yeah.
Like you find out what the issue is, you know, you educate a little bit, and then you propose a better solution, and then people buy into that. And so,
unfortunately, I think that it is always to the detriment of the American people, though, is the problem. Like, I just don't see where any of this actually leads to like actual growth. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that there are some things that these intelligence organizations do that do lead towards growth, and there's probably some, but a lot of these things lead towards, I mean, worse and worse. Like, there's no way that we're better off now than we were 10 years ago. You know what I mean? As far as like a unified country, as far as like your feelings towards your next door neighbor, your feelings towards, you know, traveling. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and they're just like, I just don't feel safe, or, you know, I don't want to go. I mean, I'll talk to people in California who just say like, oh, I'd never go out to Idaho. They're like, they're like, I would never feel safe. And it's like, I don't understand how you have that feeling. You know what I mean? Like, nobody in Idaho would ever blink an eye. Like, we're nice people. But like, that idea has been like perpetuated, And I just don't understand, like, how do we get to a point as a people then where like that doesn't have as large of an effect on us? Or like where more people recognize that, you know, it's not natural to be like this. Like there's some driving force that's pushing a wedge between Americans.
Yeah. I will say, I think one of the things that I feel like was probably more prevalent, certainly felt more prevalent when I was a kid, and maybe that's just where I lived, is like I would interact with people, you know, and maybe it was the way I was raised or whatever, but I would interact with people who were vastly different, had vastly different worldviews than me. And like, that was okay. You know, like it wasn't a problem because like I would go to school with them and they were still my buddies and we'd like play on the playground, even though, you know, their parents were doing this or they felt this way about that or, you know, whatever. Like, I think the way that you solve that problem is just by having like meaningful, real interactions. Just like you said, like sit down with somebody, like have a conversation with somebody that you disagree with and don't get angry. Like learn to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. Right. Or to, you know, have conflict without like making it into some conflict. But I feel like, I don't know if it's because of social media or whatever. First of all, I don't interact with a lot of people who don't necessarily agree with me frequently because people just don't talk about it. And then, yeah, I mean, like you just, yeah, that opportunity just doesn't exist anymore. But I think that's probably how you solve that. But, you know, I don't know. We're in these social media echo chambers so much that like everybody's just so validated by their own, you know, whatever their dogma is that it's almost impossible. And then add on top of that, you know, the moral case against, you know, whatever the thing is. And suddenly it's like, well, why would I want to interact with that? I'm not going to interact with that person. And suddenly it's like, you know, that hate or whatever that.
And it's hard when those moral cases aren't being chosen. I mean, to a sense, they're being chosen by you, but they're being guided by, in my opinion, politicians, the deep state of what you want to call it. Like they really do. They push that messaging constantly, you know, again, they push these things that will get them more power, you know, like Trump being a bad guy didn't give anybody less power. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the natural reaction to Trump being a bad guy would be like, well, let's take power away from the president. You know what I mean? Like if he's such a bad guy, then let's take power and authority away from government. And so that he, like a bad guy, can't do anything more. Yeah. But that didn't happen. You know what I mean? Or like, you know, like the message that kind of uniting on the right is, you know, Biden's an idiot. You know what I mean? And
no, he is, but yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
he's just a senile old man. But
but the natural idea after that again would be, let's take more power away from the government. But instead it's just been like, no, we're just going to continue to pile and pile and pile on more power on the next guy that comes in because we have faith in him. And it's just, and I think that is the messaging that's been driven by the CIA. Like if I had to put my tinfoil hat on, I think they're just accumulating more and more and more power. Yeah. Because they know better.
Dude, for what it's worth, I think, and again, this comes because of like my family, obviously, but I see that there is actually like, and a lot of people probably disagree with that, but I think, I don't know, I disagree with it when I say it out loud, but there's a lot of instances where I can see the justifiable case to go into like, say, a foreign country where you've got a dictator and then use these tools. So we'll call it like social engineering or, you know, whatever, use these tools to then create a stir in a country to then unseat the person who is bad, right? Like Hitler, right? Like if the CIA were a thing back then and they knew about Hitler, they might have been able to prevent his rise to power. The problem is, and we've done that a lot, right? Like all throughout Africa, like all throughout like Southeast Asia,
Middle East, like, we've meddled a lot.
We've Hussein is a perfect example. Saddam Hussein was a CIA asset, right? Like,
every single person in power in the Middle East in a while, you know, like.
Yeah, how many years did we fund the Taliban to try to get against the Russians, only to find out that the training that we were giving them was coming back on us? Like literally the same thing, you know, like Hezbollah, right? Like we helped Hezbollah because they were against, you know, dictators, and now like, oh crap, like that's coming back to bite us. So I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I know this firsthand, right? Like a lot of people in the agency are like actually through and through, like
good people,
patriotic Americans, right? Like actually good people who believe in what they do. They believe in the mission, and they're really just not just following orders. Like they're committed to the mission. The problem is that's really, that gets really murky. So on one hand, I'm like, yeah, this is really good. Like getting, getting dictators out of power in places like South America has probably, saved a lot of people's lives. But on the other hand, it's like, man, the minute you start meddling, like all of this stuff, comes full circle back. And I think, we're obviously beginning to see that, the only reason ISIS exists is because, we created a vacuum because, we did all our meddling, and, you've got people who now look at America and be like, no, your meddling is evil and we hate you and you need to die. So, you can't fight fire with fire. And I think we're learning that lesson, but that doesn't mean I know how to solve that problem. I really have no idea.
No. And it's hard because, again, I agree with you. I do think most people are well-intentioned. Like, I do think, like, even in the Manson case in this book, like, the goal was to protect American families. Like, they really felt like the hippie movement, the drugs, the, live freaky movement was bad. And, like, depending on your moral compass, like, maybe it is bad. But, like, again, do the ends justify the means? And I think that was kind of the point of the whole Manson thing was, like, was that all really justified? Like, I mean, people were murdered, people were killed, like, lives ended. I mean, nations in fear, like it talks about the fear that, rippled through LA. And again, that was, I mean, just a microcosm again of what actually goes on worldwide and using these same tactics. And like, it wasn't like they were trying to perpetuate something bad. They were trying to perpetuate, solid family values, no drugs, and they were just meddling, like you said. And like, I don't know, like, how do you do, I don't know. Like, how do you decide what values take precedent over other values? You know what I mean?
Well, you can't fight evil with evil. You know what I mean? You just really can't. And I feel like, World War II was, we were fighting evil in World War II. And like, we were not the evil perpetrators. The U.S. did things that probably weren't okay, but like, for the most part, like, you look at that and you're like, okay, that ends justify the means because we were, in a sense, righteous, having this righteous cause. But the minute that you're no longer on the defensive or reacting to evil, and you start to go out and meddle, that then becomes evil. Like, when you start to manipulate other countries to benefit your own means and ends, to that point too, like, I think after World War II, when we became kind of the world's police, like, that's when it became bad, because then we had carte blanche to be able to meddle because we had our Western ideals, which, are the best.
Good.
Yeah. They're the
great.
best. They're the best things out there, right? Like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, everybody doesn't need to, but everybody should have access to that. But I mean, you start wielding that weapon and suddenly that means, well, hey, we're going to put in, Saddam Hussein, or, hey, we're going to put in a somebody like Zelensky because he's going to help us promote these ideals. Zelensky ran on a peace platform when he was elected, look how that turned out. Right.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's hard because, again, I do think most people are intentionally trying to do good, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a good goal for people. But then, you use that justification to do bad things. Yeah. And I think that's where it's bad. And I think that's where people get in trouble all the time. Again, you use the justification of like, oh, Trump's not a good guy, or oh, Biden's an idiot, or oh, Bernie's a communist, or oh, whatever it is. And you use that justification and you're like, we just want, good, happy, whole Americans for people. And then it's like, well, I can do terrible things as long as this bad man doesn't get into power, or, this idiot's not there anymore. And, and then that's when it gets real shady.
Yeah. Well, and like, what's crazy about this case specifically is how the lengths to which people went to hide what they had done. And, again, for like a good cause. But when you start doing stuff like that, like, people are going to begin lying, and then that lie just continues to grow and grow and grow. And then at some point you've got to say, well, I'm okay with this amount of bad. I'm okay with this happening, like these murders happening because of this outcome. And on a grand scale, I think what that looks like is, I mean, a good example of this, I say would be like Yemen, right? So like Yemen there's like genocide going on. It's like the poorest country on the planet. Like more people are dying of starvation in Yemen. And like, what does the U.S. have to say about that? Well, dude, I mean, their enemy, Saudi Arabia, is like they buy all our gear, they buy all, they give us all oil. And so, yeah, we're okay with Yemen happening because the Saudis are such a staple in the Middle East and such a pillar of, American values over there, I guess, even though they're not. But like we look at that and say like, yeah, and that's okay because we've got our power structure in the Middle East. And so we can turn a blind eye. That's just a much larger, instance of kind of the same thing that happened, I feel like, in this trial. Maybe that's not like one for one, but it almost feels like that's what you have to do. You have to kind of just be like, well, we're okay with this crappy stuff happening.
I know. And that's what drives me nuts, like watching the news and stuff like that, when they're like, all bent out of shape about, one group or the other. And it's like, well, no one's been out of shape about Yemen. No one's been out of shape about, Western China. No one's burned out.
Yeah, the Uyghurs, dude. Yeah, the Uyghurs.
Been out of shape about Burma. Yeah, I mean, no one's been out of shape about like any of these other countries. It's just, you're just picking and choosing which ones you want to be bent out of shape about. And
dude, who's picking and choosing that? That's the crazy thing. Like, have you ever seen
the government for sure?
Yeah, have you ever seen anything about Yemen? Like, never, dude. I didn't learn about that until, like Crystal on Breaking Points. I think she said something, and I was like, wait a second, what is this? And, and I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it's almost just like the only reason why we're bent out of shape is because that's what we are fed, right? And not that like,
but that goes right back into this. Like that's
exactly
the messaging that's going out constantly, and that's what I think. That's why what I said about Ukraine. Not that I don't think Ukraine is sad. Like obviously, it's so sad what's going on in Ukraine, but it was just instantaneous messaging and everybody rallied behind a cause. And I don't think that happens organically. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think people take critical stances of things and break things down and like really look at things, or just are completely unaware of it naturally. Mm-hmm. And I think Yemen's a perfectly good example. Like people are just completely unaware of it. Mm-hmm. And if the government wanted to take a pro-Yemen stance, I think tomorrow you'd start to see CIA assets putting Yemen flags in their bios. Yeah. Companies being told, okay, we need you to post, we support Yemen. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yemen, and within 72 hours, the entire country would be rallied behind something. And I think that is the government's way of doing COINTELPRO nowadays. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that is their program.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%.
And anybody who thinks that this is all organic and that every single one of these causes, whether it be Ukraine, whether it's, pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, whether it's, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, MAGA, whether it's, any of these things, whether they think it's all 100% organic, like it's not. Like none of this is 100% organic. Mm-hmm. There are groups out there pushing all of these things to create conflict, to create a narrative of where the government wants to go. Yeah.
Well, and like you push the narrative enough that the conflict itself might happen organically, right? Mm-hmm. I think
exactly.
There's like that interesting use case. I think Joe Rogan, I think talks about this where, he talks about like the Russian, he talks about like all the super pro like Christian groups. It was something like the top 25, like 22 of them were like Russian bots or something like that. But they were like organizing, like they would find like local events where they would organize like this pro, whatever stance rally literally on one side of the street. And then they would take the opposite and organize, through these bot farms, like organize like a pro, whatever the opposite stance was on the other side of the street, just to see if like, oh, you're here at the same time. Like we're here to protest against you. And then like that kind of stuff pops off and happens organically. It is interesting. The January 6th is another good case. Like you've got, people who justifiably are upset or, want to protest, what they felt like was a stolen election. And you get them all in the same place, and then all it takes is a couple instigators to be like, "Hey, let's go storm the Capitol."
And I'm sure some of the instigators were real. Yeah, I'm sure there was some crazy dudes out there like
like QAnon shaman dude. Dude is crazy, right? Like
we're going to the Capitol. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I'm sure that there were a couple people in there also that were just. I mean, for sure. If somebody doesn't think that the FBI was in there trying to move things the way that they wanted to. Mm-hmm. Or that it could have been shut down in 22 seconds. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, when you have the cops like literally opening up the doors, you're like, something.
I know. So like, yeah, it's just all shady, and people should be should be wary, because there's definitely, and again, it was interesting. I think that was the most interesting part about the book, to me, was watching his transition from somebody who was pretty straight-laced, nothing. I don't think he was a very big conspiracy theorist. And then him going down that hole and being like, holy cow, like none of this is real. You know what I mean? And I think that was the most interesting part of the book. Not so much the Charles Manson stuff, because to be completely honest, I don't think he covers the Charles Manson stuff very well. Like, it's very scattered. Like, if you really want to know about Charles Manson and the murders and the trial and everything like that, watch a documentary or read whatever that other book is.
Helter Skelter.
Helter Skelter. Yeah, because it doesn't dive into any of that. It doesn't have any firsthand accounts or, stories, really. I mean, he briefly goes over the murders, and then the rest of the book is really just one man's fall into conspiracy, like realizing that it's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, dude, that's honestly, like, this is something I really, really struggle with. It's kind of been like, I mean, like, it's like a deep thing that I think about actually daily, is it's hard to discern what's true anymore and like what's real, because there's so much, I don't even want to say disinformation or misinformation, but there's so much like other BS roped up within facts and like narratives placed on it. And then, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I listen to podcasts. All that is people's thoughts on what's happening. And so you're kind of flooded with all of these other things. And then, that, knowing that some of these conspiracy theories are real, like, it makes you question everything. And that's just more difficult, because you're left wondering, like, okay, what actually is real? Like, what's the truth behind this? But yeah, I mean, to your point, dude, when I see, Stand With Ukraine, or, whatever, whenever the virtue signaling comes out, that's when I'm like, okay, so I'm getting played here. Like, what's going on? My spidey senses go off, and I'm like, I'm going to wait this one out and see. And like, like the vaccine's is a good issue for that, like, as well, where I'm like, I don't know. And like, this is like a potentially life-changing thing that, like, I don't even know if it's good or bad yet, but there's so much narrative of like, you have to, and pressure that I'm just like, dude, I almost am not going to, just because you're telling me.
And there was definitely a government-sponsored narrative there. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
And so again, it's just hard.
Donald Trump was a part of that, dude. Like, I mean,
like, how do you?
Immune.
Yeah, and then the problem is then, like, I personally, I don't like conspiracy. I do like conspiracy theories, but I like kind of hearing all the narratives and kind of trying to puzzle it out to myself. I kind of feel like it is a little bit of a puzzle and trying to like understand people. And then my default position on everything is like, people are good for the most part. 99.9% of people are going to be good. There are people that are bad, and then there are people that like justify bad, but they're still trying to be good. You know what I mean? Like, it's the people, in my opinion, this table keeps moving. The people that are like, take all guns away. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they're bad people. I just think that they have a bad solution to a problem where they honestly just don't want kids to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I get that. Like, my heart hurts for that. And it's that issue specifically, I feel like, outlines it very well, because both sides are like, we don't want kids to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then one side is like, you want your guns and you're going to let kids die. And the other one is like, you're going to disarm me so that I die. And you know what I mean? But the core value at the middle is like, we don't want kids to die.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good example.
And so, like, my default position is always, again, like, I really do think most people are good, but they might have like a bad solution to a problem. And so, like, it's trying to see past those bad solutions and not being like, you hate my liberty, you want to take my guns. Instead, it's just like, I understand you. You really don't want kids to die. Now let's kind of talk about like how we can keep kids from, dying. And I think that one is like such a polarizing issue, and people really on both sides think that the other person is trying to kill kids. You know what I mean? Like, both sides think like you're trying to kill kids, and the other side's like, you're trying to kill kids, which is so crazy, because the ultimate goal is the same for both sides. And that's how I look at things. But on the flip side of things, I think it's hard to navigate all of this, because like Olivia just shuts down. You know what I mean? She just doesn't do anything. Like, she's just like, I don't want anything to do with it. Like, I hate all of this conflict. I hate all of that. And it's hard because I get it, like why people shut down and are just like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore, because it is a lot. And I kind of like hearing it all out, but there's a lot of people in this world who just don't, and are just turn a blind eye because they're like, this is too much.
Yeah. I think too, the scary thing for me is, and I know a lot of people like this, I would say most people are like this, is when there's a conflict, because you don't want to be roped up in conflict, it's like, fine, I'll just appease and I'm just going to go along with it. Like, it's okay. It's okay. And I think that, I mean, dude, that was probably 90% of the Germans in the Nazi regime. You know, I'm sure 9 out of 10 were like, I don't really actually hate Jews or gypsies or whatever, but I'm not
gypsies.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
You know, but I'm not going to go against it because like, you know, and then that line of like, well, surely, and you know, while it's true, like it can be used against you, like surely there are good people, and surely the government's not doing this to hurt people, right? Like, but surely this isn't.
It's those people that think that they're doing good, and the ends justify the means always. And the problem is that if you get too many people that, again, just like that, like, I don't want to get wrapped up in this, or I don't want to, like, I just don't. Like, I don't, again, want to get wrapped up in this. I don't want to be, you know, pushed to one side or the other. I don't want people to think that I'm, you know, all for one side or all for the other side. And then you get too many people like that. And then it just leaves the path wide open for people to do what they want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you get enough people who don't really care, I mean, that's exactly how Hitler came into power. Was, you know, you had a small minority of people who really did kind of rally around him. And you had a large amount of people who were like, you know what, I don't really believe in this, but I mean, the economy's a little bit better, and I don't really want to be involved.
Yeah. I think, I mean, dude, like one of the facts of life is that there are sociopaths out there, and that's really hard to like accept because it's so, I mean, ironically, it's hard to have empathy for a sociopath, like who has no empathy. But like, if you accept that as a fact of life, I mean, that's actually, when you look at history, like that's what happens. In all this chaos, you've got, you know, perfect opportunity for somebody who literally has no regard. Like, there are bad people in this world. And I think when you accept that, it's like, wow, you know, and unfortunately, like, we're all swayed by this idea, like, again, fundamental core values of people. Like, we want to be happy, we want to be healthy, we want to, you know, we want to do good. And so like, you can justify a lot if it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, you know, we'll make some money off of this or whatever. Like, you know, I don't think vaccine manufacturers will use vaccines, you know, as a good example. Like, I don't think they're bad people, but they're definitely looking at their bottom line and they're like, well, no, let's maximize that, you know? And so they're going to market. And then the government's like, oh, we need a fast track. And they're like, cool, let's fund that, you know, like, just because they, you know, they're probably good people wanting to do the best for their families. And, you know, a lot of bad can come behind that. So yeah, it's, the biggest thing for me is first of all, don't, like, I try to not get caught up and swept up in this idea of like, I know what's right, because, or, you know, if there's like a social thing like the Ukraine flag, like, you know, when I feel that, I'm like, no, I'm going to distance myself and just try to watch from the sidelines a little bit before I make my own choice, because the useful idiots, that's also a real thing where people are just like, it doesn't affect me that much. I'm going to, you know, I'll put my mask on, I'll follow the regulations, you know, because like, I don't want to create a stir. And like, while that might be a good intention, you know, it can certainly lead to bad outcomes, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
dude, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
What's your like number one conspiracy theory that you
I was
like?
going to ask you this.
Oh,
one.
were you?
Yeah,
Were you? Okay.
My number one, or my like, I mean, this is like this is like the one that we just talked about is like, I mean, COINTELPRO and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's like the big one, you know,
Yeah.
like that is the one that like is very much provable and like always around, and the most that I have direct interaction with. The one that I'm like a little weary on, that a lot of people don't believe in, that I'm like, I don't know. Honestly, the more and more I think about it, this is gonna sound dumb. The moon landing.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
So where do you fall?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because part of me is like, dude, at that point, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have nothing. They didn't have any sort of technology. They could barely get the TV running on time. And then they're going to broadcast from space, from the moon.
Yeah.
You're telling me they got a live stream from the moon?
Yeah.
And it's hard to live stream from Africa?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they can't even live stream from Africa, let alone they're going to live stream from the moon?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That one's a little fishy.
So you don't, just to clarify, you don't think we ever made it to the moon?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not going to take a hard stance on it either way, but that is one that I'm like, you know what? I could believe in that one because also like, why haven't we been back?
Yeah.
You know, like I don't understand that. And then also like I was alive when the Challenger blew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was like, I remember being at school when the Challenger blew up and like, you're telling me we put a man on the moon like, what, 30 years before that?
Yeah.
30 years before that, we put a man on the moon and then the Challenger blows up?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't understand, like, how we took that big of a step backwards in space travel.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I mean, if you want to get, like, real deep into it, India just went to the moon.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
they're the third people to go to the moon or whatever.
Fourth, right? Because
Fourth.
China.
Oh, yeah, China. Yeah.
Has China put a man on the moon? I know they got like
rovers and
I've
stuff.
heard,
See, this is where
I've heard stuff like dark side of the moon.
yeah, where China's got a
bases
base on the dark side of the moon and all this kind of stuff.
South Pole of the moon.
Part of me almost thinks India just called people's bluff. You know what I mean? Was like, yes, we went to the moon, and then America has to be like, and then it was India kind of being like power play, like. What's up? We're at the moon too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
the rover like died in like a day or something.
Well, or like they just never went, like just like everybody else. And like America was like, yeah, we went to the moon. So then Russia, like, could you not imagine America saying, yes, we went to the moon. Here's the live stream. And then Russia, like right after being like, we also went to the moon. It's the Cold War. You mean you're telling me the Cold War never lied? You know, about what kind of stuff they were able to accomplish. And then China a little bit later was like, we're just going to test the waters here. We went to the moon. And America's like, again, this guy.
And the rest of the world's like, yeah, sure, totally. Yeah, cool.
Well, the rest of the world's thinking like, how do all these people get to the moon? You know what I mean? And it's just people calling each other's bluff and like, no one's going to say anything because if they have to admit that there's no way that China got to the moon, then it would also be that there's no way that Russia got to the moon. And it would be no way that America got to the moon. So it's just this giant game of bluff. Because you're telling me India got to the moon before like England did?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I just... Or anybody in Europe. No one in Europe's been to the moon.
Yeah.
And then India does.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Indians are pretty smart, but yeah, Japanese are smart
Japan's
people,
never been to the moon. I just am like, I don't know. Part of me, again, the live streaming of that is like, that was a bit much. And then, just the fact that we've never been back and then the Challenger blowing up, I'm just like, you know what? It's not even. It doesn't even have anything to do with the flag. Like I'm not into like. You can't. The shadow of the flag was right. Like, was just a little off with the time of day when they were supposed to have been there. Like I'm not into that. Like I'm just in like the most logical. Like it seems a little fishy, and we were caught up in the middle of the Cold War. When it was like important to be faster than Russia on everything. It didn't matter what it was. If Russia was like, we have a guy that can run a 3-minute, 45-second mile. The next day, the U.S. is like, we're having tryouts for the mile, and we are going to be training this, and you will get $1 million to run 1 second faster than Russia. Right. You know, like that was the whole goal, was just to be better than Russia at literally everything. And so part of me is like, what better lie than like, we went to the moon?
Yeah. Well, dude, and it's funny too, because you meant like, and like we all accept this. Like the whole point was to like shape the way Americans feel about America. Like it was like to instill, like, so I mean, they're playing mind games with you. Like whether or not we went or not is almost irrelevant because, like they just wanted Americans to feel proud to be Americans and to beat the Russians in that mental game. And like mission accomplished, you know, like it worked, dude. So yeah, that's a good one.
So I don't know. I don't know.
I think we did.
You think we went to the moon?
Yeah, I think we did.
And Elon's never been back. That's my thing. It's like, dude, Elon in a sec could just hop up and be like, I'm going to the moon.
Yeah.
But he's never been.
That's interesting, dude, because he, like, for what he wants to do. Like, he's pretty open. Like, we need a base on the moon. Like, we do need a base.
But he's never stepped foot.
Yeah.
Like, homeboy would step foot in an instant.
Yeah.
Like, it would take him, what, 2 weeks? He could take a 2-week break from being a Twitter troll
Yeah.
to go up onto the moon. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Heck, if we could live stream the moon in the 60s, he can tweet from the moon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He doesn't
the moon.
He doesn't even have to stop being a Twitter troll. He can do that from the moon. Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, why hasn't he been? You know, like the richest man ever hasn't been to the moon, and he's obsessed with space, and he hasn't been to the moon. There's got to be a problem with it. That's where I'm like, there has to be it has to be a hard like problem to solve. Like, otherwise, why wouldn't he go to the moon?
Dude, the moon's funny to me too, because it's like you get up there and it's like, okay, now what? We're like, well, did it, guys. I guess we'll go back home. Like, you know, what my thought is like, of why we didn't go back is like, why would you go back? You know, like, what is there? But, you know, that being said, in that same breath, I can contradict myself and say, yeah, but dude, a moon base would be like you'd have like Earth superiority. You know what I mean? Like, if we're like trying to protect the Earth, like a base on the moon would be like the coup de grace. Like, yeah, we won, guys. Like, you know,
well, and then like
shoot you from space.
The big justification that I've always read online is like, we have moon rocks, and governments all over the world have studied these moon rocks. I'm like, yeah, the same governments that said that we went to the freaking moon said that the moon rocks are from the moon.
Yeah, quick, somebody produce evidence. Like, all right, hey, this rock's from the moon. Yeah.
Also, there's like asteroids that have hit the Earth.
Yeah.
Like, you could pull space rocks out of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you also don't have to have gone to the moon to get a space rock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we have rovers there. I fully believe we've put rovers there.
Yeah, totally, drones and whatnot. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, 100%. I just like, that's the justification. We have a moon rock.
Yeah.
And we have a video that was live streamed in the 60s.
I know.
Like, oh my
dude,
heck.
I honestly, that's what I think. Like, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter what I think, but like, yeah, we made it to the moon, and then like all of a sudden it was like, well, we got to get some footage. Like, quick, Hollywood, like, make us a footage of us going to the moon, you know?
Yeah. So that's the one where I'm like,
Yeah.
I could put on a tinfoil hat and talk about the moon for sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
Ooh, there's two. What do you want, the dark one or the fun one?
Just mention the dark one and then go into the fun one.
9/11.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm gonna one word that changed everything for me. Nanothermite. So, dude, that's a rabbit hole. I met the professor at BYU. He did a lecture. There was a movie that came out called The Zeitgeist. This dude did a lecture. As dark as that is, dude, and everybody that you're going to get rage comments now from probably your dad. Like, no, you're stupid. But honestly, dude, when I look at it,
9/11's hard for me to wrap my brain around. But what I will say is, if we're going down the same hole as the book, COINTELPRO, and you're looking for an event to unify people around something else, and a tactic that has been done over and over and over throughout history by the CIA and the FBI, that is the event.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, that is
Patriot Act, dude.
A perfect example of doing something terrible for the ends justifying the means to get into the Middle East.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like whatever Operation Northwoods, you know what I mean? Like, blowing down a plane to try to invade Cuba.
Yeah.
And that was a known mission that the president denied. I mean, like, literally that, a tower, there are 2 towers in the Pentagon to get into the Middle East. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that one, because that's so much evil.
Hurts my soul.
But I get where, like, it's not like the CIA hasn't said that we've tried to do that in the past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
like they literally have outlined, like,
plans for it.
we are going to do acts of terrorism inside the United States to justify invading Cuba.
Yeah.
Like, that literally is in a document.
Gulf of Tonkin, right? Like, we've done this before.
Yeah.
You know, like, we've actually done it. And you look at the outcome of that and you're like, dude, yeah. So that one's dark. That's a deep rabbit hole, but I'm fairly confident. I'm like, I mean, I don't know, as confident as an idiot, can be, but yeah, nanothermite
is my moon theory.
Yeah, that's right. Nanothermite and World Trade Center Building 7, those two to me. And just the fact that, like, the CIA, like, had all of their deep records servers and they had their financial records in World Trade Center Building 7 to me is enough to be like, all right. Yeah, okay. No, so that's the dark one. But aliens to me, not aliens, sorry, UFOs to me is one where like I 100%.
They for sure exist.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like infinity mechanics, they have to exist. But dude, are what we're seeing are those aliens?
Those Tic Tac
Yeah.
UFOs?
Are those aliens or those reverse engineered secret government programs? And dude,
like Bob Lazar.
yeah,
deep
yeah,
holes, yeah.
yeah. And like I was 100% like 100% like, no, these are aliens. They're coming here to observe us. They're like, I had this whole theory of like cosmic caretakers, like we were going to blow ourselves up during, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so aliens were like, well, we're not going to let humans do that because they're going to destroy all of Earth. And so we're going to come and like disable bombs. I'm all in on that. But dude, like the most recent like Senate hearings, like some of these guys that have come out, I'm like, this is fishy, dude. Like it's like that idea of like the narrative's being pushed now to where I'm like, okay, now the government's saying it. I'm like, I don't know anymore, man. I just don't.
Yeah.
So I actually think that we've probably got reverse engineered technology from legit aliens. And like, yeah, I mean, Bob Lazar talks about like alternate theories of like physics and stuff like that can do crazy things like anti-gravity. And so, dude, if we could crack that code, you better believe that the government would be like all over that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that one. That's a fun one too. I go back and forth all the time. I'm like,
I love the aliens one. Dude, the Bob Lazar episode of Joe Rogan is like one of my favorite episodes ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Jeremy Corbell drives me nuts. But yeah.
Oh yeah. He's a bit much.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's one of my favorites.
That's cool.
Awesome. So what would you rank this book on a scale of 1 to 5 for fun and 1 to 5 for importance?
Yeah, fun. I'd say it's a 4. Like it was once I got past the hard part for me, like it was pretty fun. It was fun to read. It was scatterbrained and hard, and like to listen to all the names was kind of hard, but I'd give it a 4. And then importance, like I want to rank this higher on the importance scale, but a lot of this, and now again, like I like to like go down rabbit holes in conspiracy theories. Like I'm going to put the importance at like a 3, maybe just because all of this information is basically out there. The only thing that he did, and he didn't even really do it. All he did was say like, hey, here are these government programs. And Manson was in and around these people. Mm-hmm. There was no smoking gun to show that like he was taught how to manipulate by that CIA parole officer. Like there's no smoking gun that like he actually got his LSD from that lab, but there's, a lot of questions. So yeah, I'd give it, I don't know, 3 maybe on importance, but I if nobody's heard of any of this stuff and this is their first foray into it, I'd say 100% like you should read it just because it kind of is expansive. And to your point, the author had a lot of credibility because he was so anti-conspiracy theory to begin with. And his mind was so completely like blown and shifted by like all of the things around it that that'd be a good read. Like if you don't believe in conspiracy theories, I'd say 100% read this book.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I'd say it was a 3 in fun for sure. I think it was good. I learned a lot. I do think he's not an organized individual mentally, it's all over the place. I think he could have, I know that he ended up getting rid of the publishing company that he was supposed to go through, Penguin and stuff like that. He could have, vastly used an editor, to go through and help him organize his thoughts and everything like that. But it also, the reason why it's not lower than a 3 is because it is interesting the way that his thoughts work and the way that it comes across is, again, somebody who goes from anti-conspiracy theory to just this scatterbrained, like, holy cow. Like, I imagine him in his mind, in his house, the meme with the dude from Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's got the board and he's like pointing and it's got all the red lines everywhere. That's this book by the end. Yeah. You know what I mean? At the beginning, it's very linear. It's very laid out. And then by the end, it's him just like, and you see, he talked with this guy and he was friends with this guy and his parole officer was this guy who knew this guy. And it was just like, and so it's kind of fun in that regard that he, like, you can see what it did to him and like, that there are just strings all attached, and,
And the secrets died with all the people too. That's the hard thing. Like the one thing that drives me nuts about the book is there was never that like there was a lot of like big reveals, but there was never that moment where it was like, here's the smoking gun, like here's how it's all connected.
Yeah.
And it just and
Yeah, again,
a mystery drives me nuts because I'm like, yeah, we'll never know. You know,
Yeah.
those people who do know all died. So
Yeah. But, and then as far as importance, I would give it again, it's hard because if you're anti-conspiracy theory, I think it's important because I think it does open up a lot of questions where it like shows how you should critically think about things. You know what I mean? Like it goes from somebody who's like, this is pretty straightforward. My goal was not to uncover conspiracy theory. And as I talk with people, I just keep asking questions. And I think that's important. I think it's important that people ask questions of like, what's your motive into saying this? You know, and he does that very well. And I think that's an important skill. But overall, again, like you said, there's no big reveal. There's nothing new from this. He pulls from, you know, declassified documents that have been declassified forever, that if you've ever done any sort of research on conspiracy theories, these will pop towards the top. I mean, he talks about MK Ultra and, you know, COINTELPRO. Those are like pretty basic, you know, very basic conspiracy theories. So I would say like a 2.5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like right down the middle.
Yeah.
It would be important if you're anti-conspiracy theory, if you're fluent in conspiracy theory, you'll be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, duh.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I found myself doing that a lot in this video. I'm like, come on, man. Didn't you know that?
Yeah. Really? You're surprised that there's a CIA secret man hanging around these guys? Yeah. So that's kind of how I felt about the book. But it was good. Like I enjoyed it. And again, now I know that Charles Manson and the Unabomber are two different people. And now apparently I need to go learn more about the Unabomber.
That's a win.
So no, it was really good overall. Awesome. Well, it was good having you on the podcast. We'll have to do another episode. And now that I know that you have like a good mic, maybe you could be my first like remote guest.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because that's the one thing reason why I don't do any remote guests is because I don't listen to podcasts where the sound sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I will not.
Yeah,
I don't even care who the host or anybody is. It could be somebody that I really like. I won't do it.
Yeah.
So if you've got a mic, maybe we could do like a remote one and test it out.
Sure.
Read another book.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. Yeah, I'd love to read another book. It was good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, if you're still listening to the podcast, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Or if you are on anywhere that podcasts are available, please leave us a 5-star review. And again, we're still looking for guests on the podcast. So if you want to read a book, I've got a ton of books. It doesn't have to be conspiracy theory books. It could be really anything. I've got a ton of books that I want to read. So let me know. Reach out on either Instagram or on YouTube. Or if you know me, just shoot me a text and we'll get you set up on a book. And thanks for listening.
Sweet. Flame me in the comments.
Yeah, leave a comment for sure. Leave a comment for your favorite conspiracy theory.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
I want to see what comes out.
Yeah, seriously.
It's good.
All right, we'll see you later.